Apostle Peter OPOK. God gave me my sermon notes on hell and heaven. I am Apostle Peter OPOK of Mankranso near Kumasi in Ghana. The following is an out-of-body experience I had on Saturday, September 25, 2010. On that day, I was preparing to get a message from the Lord to preach on Sunday. So as I was waiting on the Lord for a message, He told me I should be patient, but He would give me a special message. I was a bit surprised because He normally gives me messages directly when I waited on Him. So throughout the whole day, my mind was on the Lord, but I did not hear anything from Him. Normally every Saturday from 11:30 p.m. till Sunday dawn I wait on the Lord, so as usual, I went to the church to wait on the Lord in the prayer and to remind Him of His promise to get me a message to preach the next day. So whilst in prayer, the Lord gave me Heb 9:27, and as it is appointed unto men once to die but after this the judgment. So after reading and meditating on this for a while I asked the Lord why He gave me this message. Then He said He wants me to talk about life after death, but I should wait because He wants to reveal this to me so I can effectively preach about it. So I started praying, and when it was around 12:30 a.m. I was a bit tired, so I decided to rest a bit by sitting on a chair. As soon as I sat down, all I realized was I had appeared at a certain place. Over there I saw this huge giant-looking handsome man, and this made me a bit scared, but he assured me he was an angel of the Lord sent to take me on a tour of life after death, so I can effectively tell his children about it. He said the Lord wants me to see this, so I can say it. This gave me some relief. He then said, I just cannot go and see life after death unless I was empowered at the throne of God. He said this would enable me to be able to say all that I would see afterwards. He then held my hand, and immediately we appeared before the throne of God. The place was so bright to the extent that I could not even look at the throne directly. I raised my head a bit, then I bowed again. At that moment, a huge and more handsome angel appeared and introduced himself as Michael. Michael then said God had empowered him to give me the power to be able to go and view life after death and share it. Angel Michael then placed his hand on my forehead and I felt a change within myself. He then said the way is now open for me to go and see life after death so I can tell the world about it. He then said, God and the Son are very serious about it because we on earth are not making good use of His sacrifice. Soon after this encounter, my guardian angel held my hand and immediately we appeared at the spot where I first met him. This was a T-junction with an angel standing at both the left and right roads. The angel then told me, this is the junction everyone who dies appears before heading to the final destination. One has to use either of the two roads, the left road leads to hell and the right to Abraham's bosom. As soon as he said that I remembered Luke 19, where Jesus talked about the rich man and Lazarus. The angel then said, anyone who does not know Christ would have to use the left road to hell. The angel then asked me to wait a little while so he could show me something there before we proceeded further on the excursion. At that moment we saw a number of people who were approaching the junction, and he said, these are people who have died on earth at the point in time. When the first person got to the junction he stopped, as though there was a force that made him do so. The angel said, whilst you were on earth this was how you lived your life. The angel then said some other things and then pointed his hand towards the left road, then immediately I saw the man move along that road. Whilst he was moving along road, I heard him cry and scream and saying things like what did I come to do here, can I walk on this road, etc. Whilst standing there 12 souls came and of that number, 11 were asked to move towards the hell road. All of them were crying and screaming as they moved along the road to hell. However, the only man who made it to Abraham's bosom was welcomed by the angel standing at that section of the road. He held the man's hand and told him, because of the things you did on earth this is where you belong, so let's proceed and go and take your rest. My guardian angel then asked me if I have seen it, I said yes. Then he said, God is really serious and worried because the vast majority of people dying are going to hell, very few are coming to where God really wants us to be. So my mission is to see this and go and tell the world that there is life after death. Everyone who has died has to go to a place to wait for the judgment. My angel then said we should use the left road so he can show me the reason why all who used the road were crying along the road. He then held my hand, and as we proceeded, I started feeling some heat, and this was increasing as we were going further. I then wanted to free myself from the grip of the angel and return, but he insisted that was why I was brought there to see it, so I could warn the world. I then told him, I understand I have to see this, but I cannot go further any longer because the heat was becoming unbearable. I was not seeing any fire, but I could feel the heat. It was like the wind that blows from a burning bush. As I have been a farmer before, I knew how it felt like. However, this heat could not be compared to the heat you feel on the farm. It was very hot. He then said because I have been to the throne of God and been empowered to see it, he would have to show me what is ahead. He then waved his hand and suddenly I could see a huge valley with huge flames with people in it at a close range. All I could hear were the screams of people, some saying, if I knew it was like this I would not have come here, I wish I could return back to earth. I realized if they had a chance to come back they would really have liked to do so. I could hear people saying, have mercy on me, then followed by a response, it is too late, but I couldn't see where the response was coming from. It was all crying and wailing at the place. The angel then showed me various groups of people in hell and said he wants me to see this so I can go and tell it to the people. He then waved and showed me the first group, which was full of pastors of different races and wearing their white collar to signify they were ministers of God. They were screaming in the fire. The angel then asked me, have I seen them? I said, yes. He said, I showed you this first because you are a pastor, so I want you to see there is a reward for doing the work well or otherwise. He then told me, they are here because God called them to draw souls unto him, but some went for other powers to use in their churches, others too are there because of money. He then said, this is just a transit before the actual judgment, after which they would be cast into the actual lake of fire. He asked me to come and warn my fellow pastors to make sure they do the work they have been called to do, else they would regret in the future, but it would be too late. The angel next wave showed Muslims, who were at a section separated from the rest, and their punishment was also different. What made me know they were Muslims were by their dressing. He said these people while on earth confronted God, but they didn't know the type of judgment they would be given because they just despised Christ, the Son of God. They were many and were all crying and screaming. The angel showed me different groups pertaining to various lifestyles and sins on earth. The people were placed in the groups signifying their lifestyle on earth. I saw fornicators, drunkards, and many other sinful activities, who were all crying and wailing. The angel then showed me one group of people, who from their dressing showed they were well-to-do while they were alive. He then said, these were blessed on earth by God so they could use their riches to help God's work so more souls would be won. Some would not pay tithes to enable the church get money for God's work, yet they were willing to use their money for worldly and secular things. The next scene was that of souls who committed suicide. I saw some who had ropes around their necks and some holding cups as though they were going to drink something. They were screaming and some were saying, if I knew it was like this I would not have come here and I wish I could go back. Their cries and that of the pastors were the loudest. The angel waved again and this time, the scene was that of witches, occultists, witch doctors, and people dressed like those in the Freemasons. He said these were those who had satanic power and decided to confront God and embark on evil deeds. Amazingly, I saw some children about the ages of 12 years and some a bit younger in the midst of the witches group. This is where they would be until the final judgment. In hell, it is all screams, wailing, and cries. Then finally, the angel told me, in order for me to know there is judgment after death, I am going to show you something. I then saw people I knew who had died in my town, Mankranso near Kumasi in Ghana. I first saw a man I knew who had died over 20 years, and afterward, I saw an old woman who had died over 20 years. I was then shown my grandfather who was a Muslim called Al-Hajj Amadou. In my family, some have converted to Islam and my grandfather was one of such. I also saw Ajiasur Asamoah and Ajiasur Yaada, all of whom were in my town. I was later shown my classmate called Paul who died in a car crash some years ago. The angel asked me if I knew all these people and I told him, yes, I know all of them and even my grandfather is amongst them. He then said he wanted me to see all that, so I can have a testimony to share because God wants me to share this to the world. He then stated that anyone who does not live right in this life would not rest after death, but would suffer until the judgment, after which they would face their due punishment. The angel then said, there are other things he has to show me, so it is time to leave there. He held my hand and immediately we appeared at the junction we came from. He then asked me a question, if you look at the souls you just saw and those still alive on earth, which of them have a chance? I said, everyone on earth has a chance and a choice not to come here. He then said, it is God's wish that no one goes there. He then held my hand and immediately we appeared on a beautiful road with flowers along the road. As for this place, I was enjoying the scenery and so I was walking faster and eager to move further to see more. The flowers along the road were giving out musical tunes in a rhythmic fashion. I then told the angel, this is what I enjoy and want to see. He said, it is the Father's desire that we all come here. As we were moving I started hearing a wonderful song and the music was so audible in my ears. The song was in my local language. I immediately recognized the song as one of the gospel tunes we sing in Ghana. The sound was amazing as it was coming from a mass choir and the harmony was good to hear. I became very excited as the flowers were all now moving in unison with the tune of the music. As got closer to the place, I wanted to quickly go and join that singing, so I told the angel, I want to join them, but the angel stopped me, and said he just brought me here to show me something. I saw a large number of people all dressed as shiny white and the angel then waved his hand so the scene got closer to me. I then saw something white like a wafer used for communion drop in their hands. The angel then asked me if I understood what I was seeing but I said no, unless he explains to me. He then said, because of the unity and love here that is why they are all holding their hands. He said, Christ came as a result of love and that is what we need to have for each other, but then because we don't have love on earth that is why we do things against each other and don't follow God but rather the deceiver. However, he said, if we love one another then we can serve God well and then we can also come to where we are now. He said they are all one family so they do everything in the same way, and eventually I saw them putting the wafer in each other's mouth. This was repeated 3 times whilst we were watching them. They had very magnificent bodies which are very beautiful and very smooth. They were holding their hands in the air and singing. I noticed that no one looked sick there and they all had whole bodies, unlike the souls I saw in hell too. The angel then told me, God didn't create anyone sick, but there are some people who the devil causes their sickness and others through accidents on earth. The angel then asked me, of the 2 places we have seen, which do I prefer? I said, this is where I would want to be, actually I even don't want to go back again. But he said I cannot stay there because I have not been transformed like those there. The angel then said, God allowed me to come and see these things so I can warn the world, and let them understand there is life after death and judgment follows after death, but the time is very short for Christ to come back, but the vast majority of those dying are going to hell. He said, there are only 2 options after death, either going into suffering or coming to Abraham's bosom. He said the place is called Abraham's bosom because God chose Abraham as his best friend on earth and promised, his descendants would have rest. So all those who serve God faithfully come there to rest before going to heaven eventually. So the joy being experienced here is just the beginning of greater joy after Christ returns with the bride. Likewise, those in hell now are yet to experience the actual punishment which would be after the judgment. Finally, he told me, we have to love one another and do the Father's will and be aware that there is judgment after death. When I came back I had a serious cold for about a month due to the heat I experienced in hell. This was a physical sign to let people know I had had an encounter. Transcribed and translated from Chui interview with Apostle OPOK by Ebenezer Bofo on Thursday, August 18, 2011 at 6:50 p.m.